So it's official. The Denver Nuggets will be facing the Portland Trailblazers in the first round in a 3v6 matchup. And this is a series that I haven't seen too much people talking about, but I honestly think it will be one of the more entertaining first round series of this season. Lillard versus Jokic, that will be an interesting matchup. So in today's video, I'll be telling you who I think will win between the Denver Nuggets and the Portland Trailblazers. The way this is going to work is that I'm going to give a few reasons to why I think the Nuggets can beat the Blazers and some reasons to why I think the Blazers can beat the Nuggets. And then at the end of the video, I will come to a conclusion to tell you who I think will actually win the series and in how much games. Before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want weekly NBA content and tell me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers. I'm really close. And comment on this video to start a conversation with me as I do respond to all of my comments and play that intro. So to start the video, I'm going to talk about a reason why Denver can beat the Blazers, and the reason isn't even because of what Denver does well, it's because of what the Blazers do so terribly, and that is the fact that the Blazers are an absolutely atrocious defensive team, as this season they rank as the second worst defensive team in the whole NBA, which is obviously terrible, and them being that terrible will definitely decrease their chances of winning this series, because they are the 7th best offensive ranked. Denver is, and since the Aaron Gordon trade, they've been a top 5 offense. So the worst defense versus a top 5 offense in the league sounds like a formula for disaster. The Nuggets will be able to score at will against this Portland team, and the MVP of this year is going to have a great series because the Blazers will be putting Nurkic on him. And if we're being honest, Nurkic isn't the worst matchup for Jokic in the world, but he's just literally far from the best, and there's really no one in the league who can shut Jokic down, and Nurkic definitely isn't someone who can slow him down remotely. So I straight up think Jokic will dominate this series, which will definitely increase the Nuggets' chance of winning and decrease the chance of the Blazers winning. The Blazers team has more below average defenders than above average defenders. The only guys who I would say are above average are guys like Norman Powell, Robert Covington, Derrick Jones Jr., and Nurkic. And a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. might not even play that much since he can't shoot the ball, and I honestly expect to see Michael Porter Jr. have a breakout series. He's already been having a breakout season, but I do feel like this series against this Portland team will put him on notice and have everyone realize that not only is he a future star, he already is one. The first reason I think the Blazers can beat the Nuggets is the fact that the Blazers are one of the best offensive teams, which definitely helps since they are the worst defensive team in the postseason right now. The Blazers rank 2nd in offensive rating, which is definitely something the Nuggets should fear, because we all know they have Damian Lillard who can absolutely take over a series. If I'm being honest, I expect them to have a big series versus the Nuggets because no one on this roster can remotely slow him down. CJ McCollum should have a big series because no one on this roster can slow him down. A guy like Norman Powell is someone who I believe will be huge for the Blazers as a third scorer, and Nikola Jokic isn't a lockdown defender, so Nurkic could have some big moments and big games, and as well as Carmelo Anthony, who has veteran experience and could step up. The Nuggets are far from a terrible defensive team, but they just don't match up amazingly to defend the Blazers. They have few guards who are great defensively, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Blazers had games where they looked absolutely unstoppable on offense. The second reason I believe the Denver Nuggets can beat the Portland Trailblazers is the fact that Denver is a team with a bunch of playoff experience, as they have made it to the playoffs the last 2 years, and last season they made it back from 2-3-1 leads, which is as much playoff experience that you can get if we're being honest. So Denver is a team that even if they're down 10 to 15 points or even down 2-1 in the series, 3-1, anything, they're not going to give up or throw in a towel like many other teams would. Basically meaning Denver's going to fight till the last straw, and Denver's never going to give up, which is something that could very well win you a series. especially a series like this one where the margin between the two teams are that close. The second reason I believe the Portland Trailblazers can beat the Denver Nuggets is the fact that down the stretch of the games, I have more faith in the Portland Trailblazers to close out games rather than the Nuggets, since Damian Lillard is legitimately, arguably the most clutch guy in the whole NBA. And having him alone on your team is already enough for me to have confidence with you in the clutch. But they also have CJ McCollum, who's really clutch and who can create his own shot against anyone. And he can hit very difficult shots. They also have Norman Powell, who is an underrated guy who can get buckets down the stretch of the games. I could envision some games where he just takes over if McCollum and Lillard are getting double teamed and or struggling in the game. Also, Carmelo Anthony is also an experienced veteran who can knock down big shots. The Nuggets do have Nikola Jokic, who is definitely a clutch player. There's no denying that, but depending on a center down the stretch of games is way more different than depending on a perimeter player. It's just better to depend on a guard. And just in general, I would say I have more faith in Dame down the stretch of games. And you can say that Michael Porter Jr. could close out some games on the perimeter, but honestly, we haven't seen him be able to score under pressure situations like that. And I'm not going to say he's going to choke and wet the bed, but I'm not willing to bet that he's going to close out games. And I'm definitely not willing to bet that he's going to outperform Dame in the fourth quarter. In a series like this, I think there will be plenty of really close games, and winning one game can swing the whole momentum of the series. And if the Blazers can win the close games, they can win the series. The third reason I believe the Denver Nuggets can beat the Portland Trailblazers is the fact that they have Nikola Jokic, who in my opinion is and will win the MVP this season. When you have the MVP on your team, literally anything is possible, and Jokic isn't like an MVP like Giannis or Harden where he might disappoint in the postseason. Jokic has always shown that he steps up his game in the postseason, and in the series versus the Blazers, who aren't a good defensive team and they are terribly coached, I could legitimately see him averaging a 30-point triple-double. And if he does that, it will drastically increase the chances of Denver winning the series, but he's going to need some other players to step up. But if he does play amazing, which I think he will, Denver can win the series, and it will be mainly because of him. The third reason I believe the Portland Trailblazers can beat the Denver Nuggets is similar to the reason why I think the Nuggets can beat the Blazers. Both of these team stars are players that are very elite and that are capable of taking over a series, as Jokic did last season versus the Clippers and Lillard did it in 2019 against the Thunder. So no one on this Denver team is going to lock Lillard up unless they put Aaron Gordon on him. I think he could have a bit of success, but he might be a bit too slow to guard Lillard. We'll see. But nonetheless, I still have enough faith in Lillard to think he's going to play up to a standard and have a good series. But to conclude the video, if I were to predict which team is going to win, I would go with the Portland Trailblazers in 7 games. I know this is an unpopular choice, but I think the Nuggets will miss Jamal Murray, and I think there's a good chance that the lights might be a bit too bright for Michael Porter Jr. I'm not assuming that it will be, but I think there's a good chance that it could happen, and I also have as much faith in them as I have level of confidence in Jokic, and I think the Blazers have too much weapons on offense. I think their defense will pick itself up a bit to not be as terrible as it was in the regular season, because if you play like the worst defense in the playoffs, they will lose to Denver. I mean that. But don't get it twisted, if Jamal Murray never had his terrible injury, I would have chose the Nuggets to win in 5 or 6 games, but sadly that's not the case. Anyways guys, that's it for the video. Let me know whether or not you agree or disagree with what I said in the video. Drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want weekly NBA content and to reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers. And comment on this video and start a conversation with me as I do respond to all comments. And I'm out.